Hello friends, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink, back with another STAMPtember limited edition exclusive video. Today's exclusive collab is with Riley and Company. And if you're not familiar with this company, they have some of the funniest and snarkiest sentiment stamps that I'm quite the fan of. I've used several of them over the years. So their company little mascot is Riley the Moose, and they made this set with Riley the Moose and Simon the dog for Simon Says Stamp. The cat is part of the Riley company. I'm not sure if he has, he probably has a name, but I don't know what his name is. But he's very snarky looking. I like him. So I used the image and I stamped it onto Simon Says Stamp's 120-pound white cardstock with Simon's Intense Black ink. And then while I have it in my mini MISTI here, I am putting just a piece of Simon's masking paper just right over top and just stamping it with the excess little bit of ink because I'll create a mask with this. And I'm going to color these in with Copic Markers. So Simon's 120-pound cardstock works very nicely with Copic Markers. It's different than the Nina Classic Crest Solar White that I normally use, especially because I use the Nina 80-pound. So this is a lot heavier, which for beginners, this actually would probably be a good thing. It gives you can do more blending and, it can absorb a lot more ink before it starts like seeping out underneath the lines of whatever you stamped. But it also takes a little bit more effort to blend colors because it's so thick. But yeah, I remember when Simon first released this cardstock, this was like years ago. We were all so excited because it's like, finally a cardstock that doesn't really bleed through. It's because it's super thick. This is what I use for all my like card bases and whatnot, and for ink blending. That's why I went with this rather than my Nina. I like how ink blends on this, and my intention when I started this card was to create, like, stamp and color the image, and then I wanted to mask it and do a little bit of ink blending, and I get the best results on this cardstock. So also because these images are pretty simple to color, I didn't mind, going with this rather than my normal Nina 80-pound. So it's always up to personal preference, but I just thought I would point all that out. So I kept my coloring pretty simple. I sped it up, of course. It still didn't take very long, but I kept the coloring simple. I colored Simon how he appears on all of the Simon Says Stamp packaging. And then I colored Riley how he appears. And then I looked up this cat, and it looks like he's usually gray. I would have pretty much chosen gray from anyway because it stands out nicely with the other two brown characters. So I colored them all in with Copic Markers. And then once they were colored in, I had trimmed the mask I had stamped with my little detail scissors. So I'd cut that mask out, and then I'm going to place that on top of these images, press it down really well. And then I'm going to blend Distress ink, the new Speckled Egg color, with one of my Studio Katia blending brushes. And I started just very, very light because I just want that nice light shadow of color around these. And the combination of just this lighter color and this 120-pound smooth cardstock and the Studio Katia blending brush is just perfection. If I had had this like 10 years ago when we used to struggle so much getting that like halo of color around things and just all the different things, I just kind of laugh at how much of a trial and error it was back then, and now it's so much easier. So I got that nice ghosting of color with that speckled egg that I just love. And then after I peeled the mask off, I added just a little bit of shading around the images with some warm gray Copic markers. It's really simple. And then I'm going to set that aside, and I am going to stamp one of the sentiments from this True Friends set. There's a few just random funny little sentiments in this set, and they're all kind of different styles. Like, that's very much what Riley and Company is known for. They've the craziest little sentiments, and I love them. So I'm going to ink up one of the sentiments and stamp it onto some surf blue cardstock with my VersaFine Claire Nocturne ink. And you could always, you could just leave it. You can stamp the sentiment, it's fine. The only reason I heat emboss when I stamp sentiments like this with this Nocturne ink is because guaranteed if I don't heat emboss it, I am going to smear it, literally smear it everywhere. So I'm just going to stamp it. I'd used my anti-static powder tool already, and then I'm just coating this with my Wow Clear Matte Dull embossing powder. So it doesn't even look like it's embossed because it has that dull finish, but this seals it all in, and then I don't have to worry about smearing it because I generally end up, you know, just picking up some of that ink before it's dried on my fingers, and then I touch the main image that I've spent the time coloring and blending, and then I get black smears or a black fingerprint, you know. So, did that. I also die cut some dark brown cardstock with one of the larger of Simon's basic rectangle dies because that's what I used on the main image, and then I created a frame with the dark cardstock, and then my cardstock for the card base is some Desert Storm, and for me, which this is very different, I did a side folding A2 card. I do top folding just out of habit. I get asked that still, like, quite often, like, why do you guys do top folding cards? Honestly, we started doing them way back in the day, like way back, because they were easier to photograph for our blogs and all that. They looked better, the light hit them nicer. And then it just became habit. Now it doesn't really matter. We've got a million different ways, you know, we do flat lay or whatever to take pictures, but it's more just force of habit to do top folding cards. And also I kind of like how they're different. So for me, it's a complete step out of the box to do a side folding card. So anywho, I stamped the little characters on the inside of the card with some gathered twigs, Distress Oxide ink. And then I stamped another sentiment from that set with the Versafine Claire Nocturne. And then I pulled out my Simon Says Stamp Wood Planks background, and I inked that up with that same gathered twigs oxide ink, and then grabbed a scrap piece of paper because I get the same thing. I'm going to smear this everywhere. So I stamped that onto what will be the card front. So I've just got that little bit extra, you know, texture. And then all I have to do now is just start assembling my card. So I adhered the two layers together, and then the sentiment I'm just popping up with a little bit of Simon's Big Mama foam tape just to give it that little extra bit of dimension. And then I'm going to adhere this to my card base. And then I pulled out some Trinity Stamps Coffee Bean Heart Sprinkles because it's just cute. And the color went really well with everything, of course. So I only used 3 of them. For me, I know, quite the departure. I did a side folding card. I didn't add splatter, and there's no bling in sight. But this works. This type of card, it doesn't need any of that. And they're just, the images are cute. I love it. So the last thing I did was add some white gel pen highlights. I wasn't going to originally, but then as I was looking at it, I'm like, of course, it needs a little bit. So I took my Jelly Roll pen and added little white gel pen highlights. And also off camera, I pulled out a surf blue envelope to match, and I stamped the characters onto that envelope with some Broken China Distress Oxide ink just to tie it all together. So it's a little complete set. And that finished off the card and envelope. So like I mentioned earlier, this stamp set is limited edition only while supplies last. I will have a link to it as well as the stamp with the coordinating wafer die that was released, and then all the other supplies I used too. So you can check that out in the description box below the video, and I'll link to my blog post as well. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye!